What is going on, YouTube people? Neo Cards and Comics here. Voice is getting a little better. Still have a pretty good cough. Still pretty worn out. But we are powering through. The content, the show, must go on. We're a little late on this one, but it is time to do a full-blown national recap. Covered the pickups yesterday. Just going to talk show thoughts, show vibes today. And then back tomorrow with the weekly update. Let's just go ahead and dive in. There's some obvious things that we need to chat about, and then get into more some show vibe stuff. So I'm gonna start off with the location. Everyone's talked about this already. Listen, Atlantic City, not the best place in the world. It was fine. I personally had no real issues. My major issues were traveling there is just not easy. Even me, as I drove, the wife and I drove 7.5 hours, was fine. It's an annoying drive. My bigger issue is how spread out everything was. I feel like I missed out on things just because of how far everything was away from each other. And by far, distance-wise, it's not, but because it's Atlantic City, you really don't feel like walking even, a half a mile. And also, your legs are shot, at least mine, I'm old, by day 2. So, to just walk like a couple miles down the boardwalk is not like the most appeasing thing in the world. To give an example, like Friday, show all day, after hours, or I'm sorry, Saturday, not Friday. Show all day, you're wiped out. There was the Market Movers, the SCI happy hour was Saturday afternoon right after the show ended. I had a dinner that night as well, a little bit after, but because of, I'm at the show, the Market Movers thing is across the street from the show. My hotel's 5 minutes away, so it's like, do I go back to the room and then come back and then go to the dinner? Like, real first world problems here, I get it. But at Chicago, everything is so grouped together. It just makes access to all the events so much easier. And then, same thing. Saturday, I got out of dinner. I was pretty tired, so I was probably going to head back to the room anyway, but I kind of wanted to check out trade night. But that would have meant getting a taxi from the Hard Rock to Bally's. Once again, not a terribly far walking distance, maybe about 3/4 of a mile. But not something that you want to do in Atlantic City. And then I got to take a taxi to there, and then I need to take a taxi from there back to my hotel. If it was Chicago, I would just walk down the street, and it would be at most a block, and you're there. That was the part that really annoyed me. Also, the back and forth to the convention center. At Chicago, once again, you could go back to the room very easily if you wanted to. Now, I was lucky I had my wife drop me off every day, so I didn't have to Uber or taxi to the show floor. But it was just annoying not being able to take a step off the show floor and go up to the room. I really liked that about Chicago last year. It came in super clutch to just be like, hey, I want to just chill for like 45 minutes, research a couple cards maybe, grab a bite to eat, grab something cold to drink. You can walk across the street to your room. You could be in your room within 5 minutes of leaving the show floor, and then back on the show floor within 30 minutes very easily after taking a nice little break. That was really helpful last year during the day. It really wasn't an option this time. So instead, what I did was just put long days in and then bail from the show floor at around 3 or 4. So those are my issues with the location. Yeah, the city was whatever. Like I said, I had no personal issues. But I'm there for a card show and to hang out with my friends afterwards and go to as many events and take in as much of the show experience as humanly possible. And Atlantic City just was not open to those sorts of things because of the way the city's laid out and the hotel situation and all that stuff. The venue itself, show layout, all that stuff was fine. It was felt more organized on the show floor than Chicago did. The obvious knock, which everyone's discussed, was the lack of Wi-Fi, or having to pay $80 for Wi-Fi and just cell phones not working correctly unless, certain providers were working. I had Verizon, it was not working. I heard people on T-Mobile had a little bit better luck. Luckily, the cards that I was carrying around with me, I knew the comps on. Why? Because one of my pro tips before the show was price your stuff. All my stuff was priced with recent comps, so I felt comfortable in what my numbers were on my stuff. Things on the other side of the table, a little different story. You know, some of the things that I know the comps on fairly well, or within at least 10%. Some stuff you run across, it's the national, you never really know. You just got to gut feel it. I did get lucky on the second or third day. Someone hooked me up with, I won't reveal who, but they hooked me up with one of the Breakers Wi-Fi passwords. So I snuck in on that, and then that was amazing. They had lightning fast Wi-Fi, and I had no issues with that. So that helped out big time. The show layout was much better than Chicago in regards to like how the aisles were set up. It was just one big massive room with corporate in the middle. Corporate setup was way bigger this year, way more impressive. We'll kind of talk about that in a second. But I think that's most of the logistical / that sort of stuff. So before we move into show vibes, today's video is sponsored by our good friends over at MySlabs.com. Shout out to them. Got to hang out actually and meet Ken and Matt for the first time in person, and a few other people on their team on the show floor. And then Ken and I were staying in the same hotel, so we kept constantly running into each other. We had a good late night chat about 1980s cartoons, G.I. Joe and Transformers, and a bunch of other stuff from our childhood. So we had a good hangout, but shout out to channel partner MySlabs.com. If you're not posting your stuff for sale over there, I really don't know what you're doing. You could post it on eBay too, and it's just as easy to fire it up over there. Save a ton on seller fees, and you don't have to deal with non-payers, as MySlabs cracks down extremely hard on bad buyers and bad sellers. So if someone non-pays over there, they are gone. So you have way less issues with that sort of stuff over there. So quick word from our sponsor, MySlabs, and then we'll get into show vibes and some other little odds and ends of things like market thoughts, that sort of stuff.
The platform designed by collectors for collectors just got even better. MySlabs.com is proud to now feature dedicated sections for both raw cards and raw comic books. Browse over 100,000 slab collectibles, authenticated by the industry's most trusted grading companies. Then check out a massive selection of sealed wax and now raw singles and raw lots. Join a passionate, no-nonsense community of nearly 50,000 members and enjoy some of the best buyer and seller protection in the business. And as always, MySlabs offers one of the most disruptive pricing models in the hobby, with seller fees as low as only 1%. So the next time you're forced to pay 10%, 20%, or more to sell something from your collection, head over to MySlabs.com, the low-fee marketplace by collectors for collectors.
Once again, shout out to MySlabs to sponsoring today's video. Let's go ahead and dive into kind of the second half and kind of the main part of this. Talk about show vibes, market thoughts, that sort of stuff. In general, this show, other than Saturday, felt busier than last year's, in my opinion. I don't know what they announced for attendance yet. Thursday and Friday this year, and I was not there on Wednesday for the preview night, but I had heard that the preview night, same thing, was slammed. Thursday felt like a Saturday. It was insanely busy on Thursday and Friday. This is only my second national, so I don't have like, a wealth of history on this. Thursday and Friday at this show felt way busier than last year's Thursday and Friday. That being said, Saturday, while busy, felt less busy than Thursday, in my opinion, and also way less busy than Saturday at Chicago last year. My speculation here is a lot of people came in on Thursday and Friday to avoid the massive hotel rate increases on Friday and Saturday night. Hotels got ridiculous on Friday and Saturday evening. So my theory is that people front-loaded the trip to avoid those high hotel fees on Friday and Saturday. I know a lot of people that came in Wednesday, Thursday, stayed at the show Friday, and then headed out of town Friday night. One of the busiest things on the show floor, was the Zero Cool booth. The Fanatics Zero Cool booth was insanely busy. They were previewing their new Stranger Things set. It looks awesome. I'm not going to lie. I am probably going to try to get some boxes of it. My wife and I love Stranger Things. And these cards look extremely high quality and really, really nice. I'll be curious to see a full preview on them. They had massive lines for those cards. They were doing individual pack drops, I believe, in a vending machine. Booth was all done up in Stranger Things stuff. A cool clock bell went off. If you watched season 4, you'll understand what that means. At certain hours to announce the pack drops. It was really cool. Their booth was really, really cool, and probably the busiest corporate booth of the show floor. There was a constant line. People were waiting in line an hour or two to get those drops. That was probably one of the biggest takeaways of the show, is how insanely busy that Zero Cool booth was. In regards to regular vendors, once again, we've kind of hinted about this in other videos. There's a section of the show that was appropriately priced. Those dealers sold a lot. You know, go watch Card Collector 2's videos. Ryan at Card Collector 2, his prices are always pretty on point. They're always usually right in line with comps, give or take. Those booths and people like him sold a ton. Money was 100% moving in that room if you were priced appropriately. That being said, probably 60 to 70% of the room was not priced appropriately. Some very common cards. I asked about an Otani refractor for like, shoots and giggles. And they were at like $650 on it. And there was literally buy it now sitting on eBay that I could pull up my app and buy at $525. And the card was comping like right at 500. And I'm like, it wasn't even a card I necessarily wanted. It was more just kind of like a test. And I asked, like, if they had any room or whatever. And they're like, oh, I could get to 6. And I'm like, oh, I could just get on eBay. Thanks. Bye. Dealers really didn't want to trade unless you had very specific things that they were looking for. That's the vibe that I got. A lot of dealers that had buying signs up weren't actually buying, or they were being extremely picky on what they were buying. Most dealers were buying between 60 and 70%. I heard a lot of people were being very upfront. When they would walk up and ask if they were buying, the dealer would say, I'm buying at 60. Are you comfortable with that? If not, I'm not even going to look. Which, cool. Be upfront about that stuff. That way there's no surprises at the end and everyone's on the same page. But that was kind of the vibe. A lot of people were trying to sell, for sure. When I shopped at Baker Mayfield around on Friday or Saturday, whatever day that it was, a lot of people were trying to sell stuff. Pro tip, if you're trying to sell stuff to a dealer, for the love of God, know what you want for the card. It was so annoying standing there, watching a person slide their case over to the dealer asking them where they wanted to be at on each individual card, and then them sitting there standing looking up comps and giving the dealer a price. If you know you're going there to sell, do the research beforehand so you just know your numbers. Save everybody a ton of time. That really frustrated me, because I'm walking around with one card attempting to sell, so I know exactly what I'm looking for on it. But come on, people. If you're going to waste a bunch, and you can tell the dealers will get super frustrated by it too, and I don't blame them. I would be too. If you're walking up to me trying to get me to buy your cards and you don't know how much you want for them, move along. Like, at least have the foresight to do the homework ahead of time and put a sticker on the back, or have a number on a notepad or something that you can at least throw out there as a starting point. That part always has really annoyed me, is people just not knowing what price or value that they want on a card when they are actively walking it from table to table trying to sell it. Grading company representation on the show floor. Then we'll talk about players. The show floor was dominated by PSA and Beckett. There was a good SGC presence. I did see a lot of the SGC raw card review. I shouldn't say a lot, more than I expected. But there was definitely a lot of the RCR SGC stuff floating around. But the show floor is still predominantly dominated by PSA and Beckett. And like I said, PSA was well represented, but definitely more than last year. But it wasn't like, you know, they were overtaking anyone or anything like that. CSG, very, very little. There'd be like 1 or 2 dealers that had like predominantly CSG stuff, and that's really about it. Couple sprinkled in here and there, but it was pretty tough to find a CSG slab floating around the building. Booth-wise, the CSG booth was medium busy. Same with the SGC booth. Beckett was constantly busy, and PSA was a sea of humanity. Beckett had a pretty good line also the entire time, and I don't know what the lines are for, drop off, pickup, whatever. But the Beckett booth was fairly busy throughout the show, and PSA was literally a sea of humanity when you walked down. They had a whole one end of the building essentially, and there was just people everywhere when you walked down there. I didn't do any on-site grading, so I don't know how any of those processes were working in regards to turnaround times, lines. I'm sure you guys and girls can all tell me in the comments down below. Let's wrap up, talk about some players. The struggle is real on this one. Sorry if this one sounds a little disjointed, but I'm really powering through on this one. Football. Trey Lance, Jalen Hurts, and Tua were the 3 hottest names probably. Don't get me wrong, Herbert, Burrow, Allen, Lamar, those guys were pretty popular as well. But Lance, Hurts, and Tua were way more popular than anybody else. The name that was very unpopular, or that I did not hear at all, and I actually talked to a couple dealers that had a lot of his stuff in their cases, and they said no one asked about it all weekend, Patrick Mahomes. I had one guy that had a whole case of high-end Mahomes stuff, and I asked him how that stuff was moving, and he said he hadn't even had a question about it in 3 days. Meanwhile, all his other stuff was selling out football-wise. Football was definitely moving. That's the best sport at the National. Always, always, always. You know, I had talked about taking football with me there for trades, for trade nights and stuff like that, and it moved right away. You know, the Burrow, the Herbert were immediately asked about. I had no trouble moving those at all. Baseball, it was mostly Soto and Ohtani, with some J-Rod mixed in. Those were kind of the 3 names you heard floated around the most. Basketball, some Anthony Edwards buzz, Zion buzz, and a little bit of Luka, but more Edwards and Zion were probably 2 of the more popular names that I heard bantied about on the basketball side of things. As I've been saying, interest in the hobby remains strong. You cannot deny that with how busy that show was, how busy the trade nights were, the amount of action that was happening, the amount of money that corporate companies are putting in the booths and floor space and things like that. The sports card hobby / market / whatever you want to call it is extremely popular, extremely vibrant. You can't walk into a show like that and come out of it not thinking that. It really does kind of like re-energize you almost to a degree. Decent amount of kids. Felt a little less than Chicago, but I'm wondering how much of that is the Atlantic City factor, with it being a little bit more of a difficult travel destination if you are coming in with kids because of the casinos. Bally's trade nights had a Chicago vibe to them because of like the pop-up organic nature of it. That's pretty much where most of the trade nights went down other than the organized ones. So that part felt Chicago-like. But once again, the problem there was just getting to it if you weren't already down that way for something else was a little bit difficult. Next year is in Chicago. Super excited to go back to there. The rumor after that, and there is a new management team taking over, is that 2024 will be Cleveland. The interesting part there that I read is that it would be at Huntington Convention Center in Cleveland, not the IX Center. For those not familiar, the IX Center is out by the airport. Huntington Convention Center is downtown. It's smaller than the IX Center, but it's nice. That convention center would be very Chicago-esque. There's lots of nice hotels down there now. It's where the Republican National Convention was a couple years ago. I haven't been in there in a while. So I'm not super familiar with what the layout of that place is in regards to the other convention halls. I haven't been in there since they remodeled it. But there's a lot of nice hotels right there. You're a couple blocks from like the baseball stadium, the Cavs arena, the waterfront, lots of good restaurants. So that would be a good vibe. That's only 50 minutes drive for me. I would actually probably stay downtown if it was downtown like that, honestly, just to not have to have the constant back and forth because of the late nights and stuff. The other rumor floating around is it's going to be in Chicago for back-to-back years, and then it will be in a new city. So I don't know what's going on, but Chicago for sure next year. Then my guess is either Chicago or Cleveland after that, hopefully Cleveland. And then after that, supposedly a new city. I would love to see something like a Nashville, maybe even an Orlando, a Vegas, just somewhere that's easy to travel to. On a personal note, within driving distance to Ohio would be fantastic, so I'd be okay with Nashville. That would be my leader in the clubhouse. One, Nashville has fantastic food. It is just a great place to go hang out for a weekend. There'd be some wild nights at a Nashville convention, that's for sure. So we'll see what happens. Lots of little news bits and stuff. We'll catch up on that in the Sunday video tomorrow. I just wanted to focus on the show itself for this one. But as always, had a fantastic time. Great time meeting everybody that came up to me. I will forget a lot of names and faces, so please forgive me. But the ones that did come up and said hello and had some conversations with were absolutely fantastic. I handed out some stickers when I remembered to. That's always the funnest part, is meeting new friends, meeting people for the first time in person that you've built a relationship with online, and then meeting back up with your old friends from previous conventions, previous shows, other content creators, all that stuff that you have built a relationship with. It's always a great time hanging out with Steve and Dustin. I got to hang out with Sam for a while. Filmington and his crew at his party on Friday night, also a fantastic group of people. Got to meet a bunch of new people for the first time this year as well, both content creators and viewers of the channel. So that part to me is always the best part. The cards sitting on the desk in front of me here are great. They are fantastic. But I said after day one of the show that I could not pick up a single card, and it would have been a great time. I got to meet, Ken and the My Slabs team. I got to meet some people on the corporate side that I haven't met in person. I got to meet Peter from SGC in person, Andy from CSG in person, Susan, their new marketing person, or Yanks chick, Suze, who does card chat on Twitter, who works for CSG now. I got to meet her in person. Met Max briefly, the CEO of CCG in person. Met some people from Beckett. So beginning to build out those relationships with some of those places more and more, which only benefits you guys and girls because it gives me more direct access to information. When the Beckett thing broke, I had a direct contact at Beckett to get that information on whether that slab was real or fake. That really paid off clutch in that time. So that's all I have for you guys and girls. That's the show. Fantastic time, even though I got sick and has really been on my ass most of the week. Monday was the worst. And then the rest of the week has just been recovering. But throat, cough, congestion are not a good combination when you're trying to talk and record content. So recording this one Friday afternoon, I'm feeling better, but still a little bit of a ways to go in regards to shaking this thing. So that's all I have for you guys and girls. Like, comment, subscribe. Catch you tomorrow for the weekly market update. Probably be a news heavy one. Not exactly sure yet. I have a fun new channel partner to announce tomorrow. If you're in the fantasy sports and you want to play against me, you'd be very interested in that, but we'll talk about that tomorrow. Catch you guys and girls then. Peace.